but now all of us have been bombarded with it for about 2 years, ever since ChatGPT came on the scene. We're here to talk about how it can actually be deployed by financial institutions and improve their services, improve productivity, offer new services perhaps to their customers. But I wondered if we could start by kind of making this a little more concrete and talking about, before we go into any of the conceptual stuff, any actual use cases of AI by financial institutions that you've seen and that have got you particularly excited. And Emma, I wondered if we could start with you.
I don't think so. Don't worry, we got 44 minutes.
Give us a few seconds to fix the mics, I think.
Hello. 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 Hello.
Right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you to the sponsors and to His Excellency for the terrific kind of setting of the scene of where we are. I'm delighted to be in Bahrain today. On the generative AI point, I think the one game changer about Gen AI is that the video content that can be produced and the super personalized content. And so we've seen it with ChatGPT, where it's very convincing when you ask it something for a prompt and it gives you a reply back. You've got no sense of being able to verify whether that's accurate or not, of course. That's where we are. And where I kind of operate is working with fintechs, and I've seen some really interesting use cases, particularly around the investment sector. And thinking about some of the more traditional banking products. So there is a fintech in London called Chickpea. They are reporting savings of 24,000 hours in a year for investment advisors, their ability to produce AI-generated video content on risk assessments around investments. So, and they're having tremendous click-through rates when they serve those statements to their customers. So typically, it's quite difficult to get customers to read the information, whereas video transforms the level of engagement. I think the other area, there's an interesting fintech called Zeed. They are producing essentially videos around various stocks for for Gen Z. And they sit on a bank's retail platform and allow people to click through and make investments. So I think that's where we're really seeing it opens up new markets and new opportunities for the traditional financial, for traditional banks and kind of financial service firms. Thank you.
And addresses this big gap we've got in people who kind of want and would benefit from advice but don't really access it at the moment. Do we have any other favourite use cases or development cases of AI for financial firms?
Do we need to pass the mic? Or no, we're on.
It was just me.
Good morning. Thanks very much for having us here. A huge thanks to the EDB for organizing this fantastic event with Economist Impact, and for the National Bank of Bahrain for having me here as well. Look, I think these days, a lot of the tools we already use have integrated AI into them. Concrete use cases, I'll give you a few that, for example, we've implemented at the National Bank of Bahrain. Also, meeting transcription, right? It seems simple, but it's really time consuming. These days, your Microsoft Teams, your Zoom, they have the auto transcribers, they take minutes automatically, they record everything down, they document, summarize, send the minutes out. To Emma's point, content creation. It's easy to come up to a web page and just go, what are you interested in? These 5 things, and personalize the content. A Copilot, right? Coding for engineers. A Copilot really boosts productivity. And it doesn't replace, it's a human-in-the-loop system, of course, and we've got to operate under kind of robust governance frameworks, but it does get you to a point where you can focus on testing and integration much faster rather than kind of incepting. Right? There's just a couple of examples that come to mind.
And in looking at firms kind of adopting these, what are the most common kind of early roadblocks or kind of limiting factors that they come across? Sinuhe, maybe I could bring you in on this.
Thank you for having me. A pleasure to be here and be able to share. So we operate at the application layer. We are practitioners. We are delivering value to our customers by deploying AI-based solutions. Not just generative AI, but we combine other approaches of the AI space. The biggest problem we see in deploying generative AI-only solutions is the hallucinations. When you are trying to build mission-critical applications, like we do in hyper-automation, trying to automate back-end document processing, like you get a loan, for example, you bring your documents, and someone on the back is going to be typing that information. Well, we can automate that. When you're trying to process those documents, you need to get the name, you need to get the address properly, right? And saying, oh, I think it's this, is not going to cut it, because then you're going to open a bank account with the wrong information, you're going to give a credit card with the wrong information. So hallucinations are a massive roadblock in the adoption of this, because the systems are not reliable at the moment. There are ways to solve for that using the backbone of a knowledge base and similar things as we are doing. But that's one. The other aspect is data privacy and security. ChatGPT is great, but it's in the US, right? You go to a bank in Italy or a bank probably in Bahrain as well and tell them that you're going to send their data, their customer data, to be processed in the US, they're not going to be very happy with that, right? So we see a move towards proprietary in-country or even inside the firewall LLMs that help really solve all these problems and that actually help with the adoption. I think what we're seeing is a tremendous amount of investment in the infrastructure layer. The foundation is being set, but very relatively little value is being created for the hype that is out there. And what we expect to see in the next few months, a couple years, is a lot more companies delivering value at the application layer, right? So you have to define it as like we're building the infrastructure, we have the data centers, we have the computing capacity, great. And we are seeing limit in the ability of these LLMs to really continue improving, and we are starting to see a shift towards investment in the software, right? Not just the infrastructure, but the software, the algorithms that makes these LLMs smarter, able to reason, able to solve problems better, and deliver value for customers, other than a chatbot, which is great, but there's a lot more that these technologies can do.
What I find interesting about a few of the issues that you've raised there are, on hallucinations, on where these models are actually based. A lot of it is about trust, whether the people using these services can actually trust, the kind of the accuracy, the fidelity of what they're being given. Lluís, I know this is something that you've thought about quite a bit in how financial institutions can deploy these new technologies while still maintaining customer trust. Could you talk a bit about that?
Good morning, everyone.
We have a...
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, no? Okay. Good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here. So, yeah, following what my colleagues said, that we are very excited about the the huge opportunities that the technology can bring to the industry and for the user benefit. But regarding to do that, beyond the hype, okay, we have to build frameworks, okay, to protect the companies itself and the users. These frameworks has to build in 3 pillars, okay? One of them is trust. So finance is about trust. So companies cannot lose the face in front of the user because of mistakes or data accuracy so they cannot provide fake, let's say, information or advice to the final user. So this is very important. So we have to keep the trust all the time. So we cannot lose that. Second, the accuracy. The accuracy in all the points we are in contact with the user, from the onboarding, from the using of the device, from the investment advice, from the knowing our client, for giving him a loan or credit. So there are a lot of points that we have to control the accuracy. And for that, it's very important that in this first stage has to be always a double check and oversight for professionals, okay, that are on charge before taking any decision, okay? And the third pillar is the responsibility, okay? Responsibility in ethics, okay? Responsibility in education our own employees, education also our clients, how they can embrace this technology without no over expectations, okay? And because there are like two kinds of clients. These that they are eager to embrace this technology aggressively because they think that technology is going to make them rich fast and save their time, and they have huge expectations about the technology. And the other ones is 90% of population that there is a huge risk of digital gap. So they are not ready for digitalization, even for artificial intelligence solutions. So how companies embrace the challenge without losing the trust and in benefit of the client. So I think it's one of the biggest challenges in the next times.
Alaa, how do you see all of this changing and disrupting existing financial institutions? We're talking about a massive pace of change. And I'm interested in how from your position, you see it kind of changing the landscape of which institutions are doing what.
Yeah. Thank you, Joshua. And it's very interesting today, the combination of the panel here. We had a discussion in the morning, and I think 5 of us can launch the next big AI disruption in the region. We have the lawyer, the tech provider, the intelligent document processor, the digital bank, and an international bank. So we can try to do something. We believe that AI acceleration is going to speed up, and it's going to be much faster than what's happening now. It's just the starting point now of it. And we believe that there will be a significant change in the business and operating model of financial institutions because of AI. But if we zoom out a little bit it's very important to consider AI as a skill that we need to master at the national level. And we need to take into consideration what the studies are saying now, that the role of the digital economy, if done very well, will increase from around 16 to 17% to around 70% of any economy. And that's huge progress in the coming few years. So coming back to the financial services industry, we think if you look in the past 7 years, the fintechs came in and disrupted the banks. And the main reason was the cloud, right? So I guess you are based in the UK. You saw a lot of startup banks came and they gave a better experience. And they were able to do this because of the cloud. And maybe of agile way of working coming together with the cloud. So what we see now is that the next disruption will be from something called FinAIs, which will be disrupting both banks and fintechs. Fintechs already now have a legacy. Some of them are operating for more than 7 and 8 years. And there will be a new generation of financial institutions which will be natively deployed on AI, maybe the whole code generated using AI. And they will be more efficient than banks and than fintechs. And those will be the disruptors in the next few years. And on top of utilizing AI, they will also introduce new ways of working, new culture, because you cannot adapt AI if you don't change your mindset and you don't change your culture. And the traditional institutions and the fintechs will struggle a bit to adapt to this change.
Thank you. Now, the other side of all of that change is kind of how regulators are thinking about this kind of burgeoning technology. And there are a lot of different approaches around the world. Emma, you're a lawyer. I wonder if I could ask you to talk about some of the different approaches while we have our analog solution to sound being passed over.
So I think, obviously, we have the EU AI Act, which seems to be, the EU has stated it wants to export its AI governance regime to the rest of the world. It's cross-sector and will take a couple of years to implement, and obviously the large tech firms are already having to move in that space. The general focus has been actually on a more sectoral approach. So I have been fortunate enough to speak with ministers in South America, and some of them are adopting an EU AI Light Act, which is lighter touch, but is a bit more cross-sector. But actually, the kind of the winning approach at the moment in the rest of the world, although the EU will say, well, everyone will follow the EU AI Act, is a more sectoral approach. And what this does is allow the regulator that's focused on the sector to assess how the regulation should apply in AI. So His Excellency referred to ensuring that there was future-looking regulation. And what that would do was anticipate technological changes, for example, and allow a regulator to take a heavier or lighter touch, depending on the use case. So, for instance, one of the risks that really gets focused on is cybersecurity with AI, because the risk of being able to generate this content is also that you could deceive someone with that. And so that would appear to be an area of greater focus, for example, than AI in some of the less regulated sectors, for example.
It's quite a kind of bewildering area to be entering when we have these different approaches from different regulators. We have kind of firms who might not kind of fully understand what they can be doing, what they ought to be doing already. Alaa, could you talk a little bit? You've been thinking about sort of what firms who are starting from a point of being slightly kind of bewildered about what they should even be doing with AI is. You know, should they be developing their own solutions? Should they be acquiring them, maybe white labeling them? Could you talk about maybe how you should get started on all this stuff?
Sure. Thank you very much. And I guess it ties to the question you asked earlier, kind of what are some of the key considerations that firms should be thinking about when they get into this space. And I would say, look, the first building block is often your data. Having a strong, performant, structured data strategy, data architecture, whereby you can build scalable data sets, which you can then mine, is probably a first step, right? So a lot of the considerations that, for example, we have at the bank are around our data. And then with that comes data governance, right? How do you keep it clean? How do you continue to maintain it and ensure that it is always usable? You need an AI policy. So some of the risks that were pointed out earlier were around, let's say, confidentiality, right? What are you allowed to use on the AI tool? What can you put out there? Can you architect for security, right? Can you build your systems in a way where sensitive information, proprietary information, client confidential information, for example, are automatically scrubbed out before being sent to servers that might not sit on your premises? And then even from an infrastructure perspective, you'd want to keep that infrastructure secure, ring-fenced, dedicated to yourself, right? I wouldn't necessarily advocate for companies to build everything from scratch unless there's a very strong commercial use case. I would say, though, that you can essentially leverage pre-trained models that have been optimized for a particular use case and build from there, right? And one of the biggest things to come out of this kind of generative AI growth spurt, if you will, or boom, is actually the multimodal nature of the AI tools, whereby you can take something that's been pre-trained on text or combine it with something that's been, or train something new for image analysis, for example, combine it to get a multimodal tool that gives you another level of depth in your analysis or outcomes, right? So to summarize, I'd say start with the data, have strong governance, have the right policies in place, think about security and confidentiality, don't build from scratch, leverage what's already out there, right? Get there faster.
Thanks very much. And I suppose the other thing that institutions who are just starting out on this journey need to think about immediately is exactly where am I going to create value by actually deploying this new technology. Sinuhe, this is something that you've been thinking about. Where do you think the key kind of points of value creation through deploying AI in financial services are?
I think it's going to be across every aspect of our life that we are going to see AI creating value. It's so pervasive, it's so, even now, it's like you take your phone and there is so much AI in there, from your camera to the chatbot, et cetera, et cetera. But I think there are some aspects that we need to understand and we need to be cognizant as to how this value is going to be created, and the expectations that we have on the technology in the short term might be too high with this generation of technology. LLMs are called LLMs for a reason, large language models. Right? They have the ability to generate language in a grammatically correct way. They are not large knowledge models. They don't know really what they are talking about. They have a tremendous amount of data, of information that they pull from, and directionally, they might construct text in a way that is meaningful in a grammatic order, right? That doesn't mean it's proper, and I'm going back to the hallucinations. So I think that there is going to be a necessity, and I'm going back a bit to what I said before, of investing more in algorithms, in investing more in complementing this ability to communicate, to produce language, which is great for chatbots, and this is what we're seeing that, with the ability to understand what these systems are talking about. There's a very interesting example, it's on the web. It's a planning problem in computer science, right? So it's a farmer that has to cross a river with a canoe and has to cross a tiger, a goat, and a cabbage. And of course, you cannot leave the tiger with the goat, and you cannot leave the goat with the cabbage, right? So you go to ChatGPT or whatever and say, give me the answer to this problem. And it goes, and it's what I call copy-paste knowledge, right? So it searches, copy, oh, this is like the question you're asking me. I copy the result and I paste it, right? There is no intelligence there, really. There is no thinking. Why? Now you change the problem and you tell ChatGPT, I am a farmer, I want to cross the river with my canoe, and instead of a goat, a cabbage, and a tiger, I have 3 tigers. So it says 3 tigers. It goes, and because the initiation of the query is the same, gives you the same answer. So you take first the cabbage, then blah, 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 blah. There is no cabbage in this problem. And that gives you the clue as to how intelligent these systems are. They are not intelligent at the moment. They will. The technology will continue evolving. And when we start combining this symbolic and non-symbolic AI, et cetera, and Europe is starting to take the lead on that. There's starting to be quite a bit of investment in R&D, how we combine the generative AI with the traditional symbolic AI. I think that is the perfect recipe for what is very popular now, this superintelligence, this general artificial intelligence, et cetera, et cetera. But more importantly, for the day-to-day, we will see a tremendous amount of value creation and applications. What is the killer app? This is what investors are asking when they see the valuations of NVIDIA and whatnot. It's hard to say, other than a chatbot right now, because the technology is in its infancy. I oftentimes give the similarity of a 5-year-old has learned to talk, but it has not gone to university, has not had work experience, has not gone through life to build knowledge. So it can produce words, but it doesn't know what it's talking about. So you ask a 5-year-old to talk about anything, okay, might produce some language. It's an oversimplification, but I think directionally that's where we are. The technology is very early stages, very powerful, but not powerful for the things that people is powerful. It's powerful for generating language, not for generating knowledge in a way.
Lewis, I saw you smiling and nodding there a fair bit, particularly when we were talking about the kind of unpredictability of what these artificial intelligences can do. A phrase that you've used to me earlier is AI as a wild animal. I wonder if you could talk a bit about that.
Not just following the words of my... Following the words of my colleague, okay, literally is a wild animal. So it's plenty of models that they win a lot of muscle. There is not a lot too much intelligence, okay? And at the same time, there is no legal framework. So this is a big opportunity for good actors, but also for bad actors, okay? So anyways, technology is there. We are going to manage this hype. So finally, we are going to get some useful tools in the layer of the user. That is the most important, okay? And our point of view, like neobank, is that in one side we have this new era of technology with this blockchain, on-chain data, artificial intelligence, and in the other side we have the whole world. Before, we saw the user as a local user. So user in Spain, he's dealing with a Spanish bank, with a very traditional way from the bank to reach him to sell some kind of products or to try to help his financial life, okay? Now users have in the palm of the hand one device. This device can provide to him multiple jurisdictions, all in a compliance and regulated way. They can move money in the ways that they never did before, okay? And they have the chance to be connected with so amazing jurisdictions like Bahrain, okay? And this jurisdiction can offer products, can deliver products and services, okay? And reach millions of people that was impossible, just impossible before. So it's a huge opportunity. And the other big opportunity is we have there, I could say 90% of population. 90% of population we have unbanked people. So we are talking about Latin America, we are talking Africa, we are talking other regions that unbanked people. We have banked people with no education. We have educated people with no good financial habits. So at the same time, we have these technologies, and we can eliminate the friction when a human is trying to sell something to the user, you know? So all of this population is trusting in technology, and they trust technology in order to take good decisions. So here we have it's a huge business opportunity, huge impact to all this money that is stuck, and all these people that doesn't know how to do the money, how to manage the money. We as financial organizations can make business for the better for the society.
Thank you, thank you. Yousif, you've also been thinking about the kind of the future capabilities of AI, and I know you've devoted some thought to, you know, we've all spoken about generative AI loads over the past couple of years, but what the next cycle is going to be about. Could I ask you to talk a bit about that?
So it's about the future of Gen AI. Well, something that I'm passionate about is the emerging concept of AI agents. And one big thing that's going to happen is that Gen AI is going to move from providing thought or information to performing action. And the implications are huge. And we should be ready for that. And what that means, just an example in financial services, is now when we deal with Gen AI agents, we deal with them through prompts. So we put a prompt and we get a response. It's a content or a summary or a conclusion. What AI agents are going to do is imagine you are going to approve a credit process So you're going to go to the AI agent and say, this is the company, review for me the credit process. And then there will be like an AI agent who is the manager, and then there will be a credit analyst AI agent, and there will be a relationship manager AI agent. And they will work together as a team with the human stuff in the financial institution, and they will perform the job. What this means is that the AI agent is able to perform in different environments and in different circumstances. With now the Gen AI is very difficult, right? And this means a complete change in the operating model of financial institutions. Vendors are already marketing themselves that they have AI agent, but still it requires some time, but it's coming, and it's coming very fast. And we need to be ready for that.
And let's return, as we started, to kind of some more concrete things. We've kind of moved out into the future of AI, but I guess what people are most thinking of is exactly what they should be doing right now. So perhaps, Yousif, I could stick with you, and just could you give us an idea of how financial institutions should be starting with their practical applications, what they should be doing now?
So I think, let me outline it in 4 principles. First is, financial institutions need to integrate AI into their business strategy. And there is nothing called AI strategy. So your business strategy should have AI as a foundational element of it. If you're going to do anything new, you should ask yourself, what's the role of AI? Is it going to make it faster, better, less risky, etc.? So that's principle number 1. Principle number 2, what the whole industry is doing now is looking into use cases that make us more productive with AI, but we need to think what is the longer-term impact on our business models. The current business model of financial institutions will not be sustainable. Organizations remain, but business models get obsolete. So how do we evolve our business model to be enabled through AI? So to summarize that, develop a futuristic view of AI. That's principle number 2. Number 3, make AI productive now. You don't need to wait for the technology to be perfect, especially with your internal use cases. You can make things much faster, less risky, and with less cost. So just do it now. You don't have to wait. And 4th, of course, which maybe some of my colleagues have outlined, deploy AI safely. You need to understand how the systems work. You need to be able to make sure there is no bias. And you need to make sure the systems are transparent. If the regulator comes and asks you, what are the basis of the credit decisioning of your AI algorithm, you should be able to explain it. And you cannot say it's a black box and I don't understand it. So I think these 4 principles are very important. And I encourage every financial institution to kick off an AI program. And this is what we've done in our institutions. It's sponsored by our group CEO. And we have Innovation Council that has the AI on top of its agenda. And we already have use cases of Gen AI deployed in the hand of employees. And they are very happy. And every day they come and tell me, Yousif, when is the next use case? When are we going to get the AI tool? And we are just rolling it now across the group.
Thank you very much. If we could get the mic back to Emma, I'd also like to ask you a bit about the risks and the kind of the risks, and B, the kind of general kind of concepts and considerations firms should be thinking about. Just after this, we're going to come to the audience and ask for if anybody has any questions that they'd like to ask the panel. We'll get a mic out to you if you put your hand up. So if anybody wants to have a think of a question for themselves, then do.
So I think we've just touched on the AI safety point and the risk of bias. I mean, I just counter that with that there will be bias with any decision maker. So I think it's being aware of bias and making sure that when you're developing an AI or deploying a tool, that you're aware of that bias and you're able to counter it. I draw an analogy with using a piece of AI as the same way as you'd use kind of a mechanical screwdriver rather than a manual one. It's simply a tool that allows you to do something more quickly and to a better effect a lot of the times, but it is simply a tool. It's an extension of a human and should never replace the human. I think the other thing that what I'm seeing more and more when I'm working with boards of financial institutions is that they are focused on how do we consider AI, what should we be doing? And I think I've talked about cybersecurity, but actually cybersecurity was traditionally left just to the CISO and the IT teams and the security teams. Whereas I think we should learn from our mistake there and realize that it is across the entire company, and someone should be responsible for it at board level to know not only the deployment, but how the risks and the benefits are being taken advantage of. But that's really the huge one. But I think as well, there's this point around when you're handing a function to a smaller fintech, you have the risks within your supply chain, but also what happens if things don't go okay with that supplier. So it's the same piece around that. And also, as you move on to these platforms and you digitally transform, sometimes people take a very short-term view of it. But I only sign up to a 12-month contract with my Apple Cloud. I've got no intention of leaving in 12 months' time. When you're moving your data onto another platform, this is really a long-term deal and should be viewed in that. My panelists have referred to kind of the approach around the importance of architecture and the data governance piece as well, and they're key. I'm finding a lot with companies that their data just simply isn't a state to be able to deploy it effectively as well. So when you're told about the kind of the savings that might be achieved, you really have to take into consideration that you might have to find the data, you might have to clean it, you might have to get it into a stage. The one that really seems to be less for the financial services sector, but the thing that people are grappling with at the moment is how these LLMs have been built, and whether other people's content has basically been misused or there's been an intellectual property infringement. But no jurisdiction has really come out and taken a position on that, apart from Japan that said it's not an issue. So we're still grappling with those points as well. And that's stopping a lot of deployments within companies because of this copyright risk.
Thank you very much. Do we have any burning questions from the audience? We have one here, if we could get a mic out.
Thank you. Good morning. With all these different brains on the scene, I'm wondering, what do you think about the crypto topic related with AI? This is a reality, the crypto environment, not just talking about crypto, but talking about blockchain technology. How do you think that will be combined in our reality? It's a different, very interesting topics, from compliance, multiple jurisdiction. And crypto and blockchain is playing a very, very big role right now in terms of transactions and so forth. What do you think about the AI in conjunction with the crypto?
Who would like to? Oh, Yousif, on AI and crypto.
Excellent question, and I think this is a core foundation for the future of financial services, is the intersection between AI, but let me expand it a bit. Instead of saying crypto, I would call it digital assets. And that includes crypto, stable coins, CBDC, tokenized deposits. The combination of these two coming together in the right formula is in summary, the future of financial services. And the interface between us and the financial institutions will be through a combination of AI and digital assets. And that will be a driver of the new business models in financial institution. There are basic things already happening, like smart contracts, programmable money, programmable payments. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. And once AI gets mature and digital assets get adopted globally, we're going to see a complete different set of financial institution services that is beyond our imagination now, because it's also important to see that innovation, sometimes you don't know what you can do with these things. But once they are available, look at the internet. When it came, what every financial institution did is just a web page listing your services. But see now what it does. It does a marketplace. It does an online exchange. It does complete new platforms for tokenization. And the same powerful thing would happen through AI and digital assets. And that will power what I mentioned in the first part of the panel, the FinAIs. And those will be the new unicorns and the new disruptors in financial services.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions from the audience? Oh, we have one in the third row back here.
Christina Yan Zhang from the Metaverse Institute. So I want to ask the panel a question about generative AI created deepfake. As you might remember that early this year, we see Donald Trump posted an image of Taylor Swift endorsing him for the US presidential election. And he said, I accept on social media. And later it turned out to be, it was not an endorsement from Taylor Swift. And then he sort of gets into a little bit dispute in terms of legal. And he actually jumped out and say, I didn't create it, that image. I just posted it because I saw this from Taylor Swift. And then Taylor Swift later said, actually, I want to ensure people understand the challenge of generative AI in terms of deepfake. So now I'm coming out publicly and saying that I endorse Kamala Harris for presidential election. So my question is, how can we address the deepfake appear in the form of image, video, etc. in the financial services? Because now only need to spend like $1,000 US. Someone can use the image and the video to create a footage speaking to you live. So how can we verify during the financial transactions this will be properly mitigated for all banks in the future? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so how can we make sure Taylor Swift doesn't start giving us false investment advice?
I can take a stab at that and then maybe we'll jump in. Look, the deepfakes is a real issue. I think the way that models are created, I suppose, and the different types of models that exist, and the types of training and machine learning that go into them, will make them more or less susceptible to certain fake. Oops, sorry, is this thing working? Sorry, is that better? Yeah, we'll make them more or less susceptible to fakes, right? And to manipulation. And if you get a simple kind of pre-trained model where you're feeding it images, let's say, right? And you say, let's say it's a picture of a cat, but you say this is a dog. And you create lots of pictures of cats and lots of pictures of dogs, but there are more fakes out there than there are true ones. Your model will learn incorrect kind of outputs, right? But in this case, I think that risk is more prevalent in the pre-trained models and maybe can be addressed in intelligence in the generative part of the model itself, right? So when you take a pre-trained model and you build on top, but that level of intelligence, I think, in the models is something that's still developing, right?
So I alluded to it earlier about the risk of video content, but that allows deepfakes to be created. I think there's a distinction between model training that generates incorrect output and obviously kind of criminal gangs trying to generate output to defraud consumers. And as we move to the digital relationship with our bank and our financial institutions, that risk becomes higher because we are remote. We're not going down to a bank and seeing someone face to face. There are various content authenticity initiatives around, and I've also been at events where someone has called out and said, actually, we have to assume everything is fake. So, and work on that basis. I don't think we're there, but I do think it can be tackled in the same way that telephone calls and emails from banks can also be tackled, or through your phone device and your app around that, and whether that's it. But I do think it's a significant risk, but I know kind of governments around the globe are focused on it, and they will particularly focus on it because, as you've spoken about, the risk that this brings to elections as well. So this will be one thing that legislators will be focused on.
Thank you, Emma. And I'm afraid that's about all we have time for. So I'd just like to say thank you so much to everyone on the panel for giving us your time. Thank you for listening. Thank you for bearing with us through the sound difficulties. But thank you, everyone.